Hello again. As always, it's so good to have you with us. Let's take a look at this story now. The Johannesburg Metro Police Department has dismissed reports of a strike by their officers. Spokesperson Wayne Minnaar said his staff members reported to work as usual. He joins us now to elaborate. A very good morning to you. It's so good to have you with us. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning. Thank you.
Speak to us about these reports of a strike. Where did they come from?
Yeah, well, look, it all started New Year's Eve when the union called for officers to go on a strike, which officers did not heed, and that management really want to commend and want to thank officers for their dedication and for their hard work, because all of the officers who were supposed to be on duty on New Year's Eve did report for duty, and they worked side by side with the SABC, EMS and disaster management to ensure a peaceful and a good New Year's Eve, and also to arrest people who needed to be arrested, which included rapists and vehicle thieves and people with dangerous weapons. So the officers really worked very hard, and that is a good thing. So we are glad that the officers are on duty and they're working, and even right now, as we speak, officers have reported for duty in all the reliefs and shifts, and they are working on the freeways, on the equestrian unit, on the K9 unit, even the accident investigation unit, and all of the regions have all got officers on duty.
Up and running. That's very good. But, you know, as the cliche goes, where there's smoke, there's fire, some might say. Are there any tensions simmering, any dissatisfactions, perhaps, that may have led to the union saying, you know what, we think we should call for a strike?
You see, I want to say that the management of JMPD has an open door policy, and if there are any issues with regard to any aspect, whether it is uniform, whether it is salaries, whether it is vehicles, whether it is firearms, whatever the issue, they must come forward. We can negotiate it, we can sit down and we can talk about it so that we can find a solution to whatever is worrying them or whatever the problem is. But at this stage, we are glad that the officers did not heed the call of the union, because it is the union who called for a strike. And up until now, the officers hasn't gone on a strike.
So there are no concerns that you know of that have been raised by your members?
There's no concerns by the members from directly.
Yes.
So that we can say, and then also we want to give the reassurance to the motorists who are returning to Joburg that the officers are on duty, and that the officers will do their best to make sure that the roads are safe.
Oh no, I know they are out in their numbers. I think in a day I was pulled over about 3 or 4 times, but instead of being upset, I actually was relieved. And every time I stopped, I actually thanked the officer, because they were sacrificing time away from their family and loved ones to make sure that the roads are safe, so that my family and loved ones could get to their destination safely. So I did see a lot of visibility, so well done on that one. But let's go back to the union, SAMU. Their call for the strike, was it related to the licensing department and their protest?
Now look, initially the strike started at the licensing department, and then the issues there were dealt with. And the strike then ended on the 29th of December, when all of the staff at the licensing and testing stations then returned to their posts and their desks, and everything was then normal at the licensing and testing stations. It was then on the 31st of December that the union called for the patrol officers to go on a strike.
In an unrelated matter. So it wasn't based on the licensing department's industrial action? You know,
until now, management at the JMPD is not clear what the union wants. There's no clarity. So really, we are saying to the officers, if they've got an issue, they must come forward, and we'll discuss it at any time. Let's talk about it. Let's find a way. If there's issues which is worrying them or issues of concern, let's talk about it. But the officers are not heeding to the calls of the union, and they are on duty. So that could also mean give another indication of where the problem really is. If it is wherever it is, whether union or wherever it's lying. But at this point, we can say that all the officers are on duty.
Let's now go back to the licensing department. You've mentioned that things are back to normal there. Have whichever grievances which were raised during that unrest or the industrial action, have those grievances been dealt with?
Yes, we can say it has been dealt with in as far as the problems are concerned. But I don't want to raise the issues, because the officers themselves have not raised it. So if the officers themselves have not raised the issue, then how can we say it is an issue?
So how are we going to bridge this divide and this miscommunication between yourself and the unions and the employees as key stakeholders, in fact, in making sure that the road safety initiatives work? How are you going to go and meet them halfway? What do you think can be done?
I think we must meet.
Yeah.
We must sit down and we must talk. Let's hear what are the issues that the union has. Let's hear if they can really explain in detail what is the issues that they have that they want us to resolve. Because the officers directly don't have any issues that we are aware of that needs
but
to be resolved.
But the unions would argue that they're representing their members and those are the officers and they speak on their behalf.
Well, good, but then we must meet. We must meet and talk. We can meet at any time. We have not said we will not meet with the representatives of the union.
So up to this point, you haven't sat down and thrashed out the issues?
Not thrashed out issues which they are claiming they are with regard to the recent calling.
Okay.
So we are glad that the officers are on duty.
So when you leave the show, you're going to try and make those attempts to meet up with the relevant stakeholders?
Yes, no, the management will really try their best to be able to meet with the stakeholders so that we can have a discussion and talk about these issues which there could be, or whatever there is that could be affecting officers. But we're glad that the officers are not showing any signs of having a problem, and the officers on duty. The officers are serving the communities, and the officers are making sure that the roads are safe.
It is quite baffling, I must be honest. It sort of boggles the mind. One would think the first port of entry or the first order of the day would be just sit down around a negotiating table and say, here are the issues. Then you would respond to those issues, and then after one would take the steps of protesting should there be a deadlock that is insurmountable. But we will have to call in the union, I think, as well, just for a right of reply. We have heard from Mr. Wayne Minnaar, and thank you so much for your time. We have run out of time, unfortunately, and the spokesperson for the Johannesburg Metro Police Department. But we should, I think, call in SAMWU as well to give us their side of their story. But let's leave it there, at least for now. Thank you so much for joining us. Quick ad break. Morning Live continues after this.